Today is Yutes Elul Tovshin Pei Beis. We are in Teres Menachem Sefer Mamar Tovshin Yud Daled, in the first Mamar of the Sefer, Mamar Zeh Hayom Tchilas Ma'asecha, which the Rebbe said on the second day of Rosh Hashanah in Tovshin Yud Daled. We are on page Ches, in the middle of Ois Daled, chapter 4. We are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About 10 lines from the beginning of the chapter. The line starts Tzorich, and we are up to the words Ve'inyan Zeh Naaseh. To recap what the Rebbe said earlier on, the Rebbe explained that on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, everything retracts back to its original source, and we need to draw. The service of Rosh Hashanah is designed to draw down that energy, that retracted energy, back down into the world. And the method by which on Rosh Hashanah we draw down Hashem's desire and pleasure in kingship is, as the Talmud says, through the recital of verses of kingship, Psukim Malchias. And we recite that in the Rosh Hashanah prayer. However, the Rebbe explained that this is insufficient, because as the Talmud says in Rosh Hashanah, Imru lefanei Malchias kadesh tam lechuni aleichem, recite before me verses of Malchias, of kingship, so that you may make me a king over you. However, the Gemara goes on to say, Ubameh b'shofar. How is this ultimately accomplished? We achieve the making of Hashem as a king over us and over the world through the sounding of the shofar. In other words, the recital of the verses alone are insufficient to accomplish this. We also need the shofar. Why? So the Rebbe explained in the Ma'aser, because reciting verses means uttering words. Words are made up of letters. And as explained earlier in the Ma'aser, the way Hashem makes himself present and manifests, the way Hashem manifests his energy and makes it present in worlds, is through clothing it in letters, in words, in letters. Bidvar Hashem Shamayim Nasu. With the utterance of Hashem, the heavens were created. Vayomer Elokim Yihir, the 10 utterances in Bereshis, in Genesis, through which Hashem created the world. It's got to do with words and with letters. And these letters form part and are an integral part of the chain order of creation. So since on Rosh Hashanah, the godly energy retracts from these letters, from the chain order of creation, the letters alone, the recital of words and letters, even words and letters of kingship, are insufficient on their own and are incapable of redrawing down the divine energies, since it is from the letters in the first place, from the chain order of creation, that these energies retracted. In other words, you cannot utilize a device firmly rooted in the chain order of creation to redraw back down energies that were retracted and removed from the chain order of creation. You need something stronger, you need something more potent, something greater, that would reach beyond the point to where the energies were retracted and draw them down anew from there. So clearly, words and letters are not that medium. They are very much an integral part of the chain order of creation, from where the energy is retracted. So this is what the Rebbe is now explaining in the Ma'aser. The crowning of Hashem as king, drawing down a fresh desire of Hashem to recreate worlds, this has to be accomplished specifically through the shofar. And that's what the Rebbe says. Going back. This is accomplished specifically through the shofar. The first sound of the shofar is the tkiya. It is a cry of the voice. It's a simple cry. Shvorim, short breaks or fractured sounds, are like moaning. Trua, staccato sounds, like an urgent alarm, are like whimpering. These sounds represent the cry of the heart. What does this represent in the deeper sense? These sounds represent the crying out from the essence of the soul, resulting from one not finding oneself, within oneself, any form of existence at all, to such an extent that the person feels that his entire being and the entire chain order of creation is constriction and limitation. As gefindt in sich nicht, as gefindt in sich kein Mensch nicht. This is also the meaning of the pasuk in Tehillim that says, Min hameitzer karosi, chapter 118, from the straits I called out. And by the way, this is one of the psukim, one of the verses that we say before the sounding of the shofar. And this is what it means. He calls out from dire straits, feeling that the entire chain order of creation is constriction. All this is true even if all year round one's spiritual condition was as it should be. And how much more so this is the case as regards to one who sinned, blemished, and transgressed the desired path. This individual experiences not only constraints and limitations of holiness, but also constraints and limitations of the other side of holiness. As a result of this, one is in a state of tremendous bitterness. And for this individual, this is the simple meaning of the Psalm 118, from the straits I call out, genuine spiritual straits. By the and through this process of spiritual work within oneself, calling out from these straits, from these constraints, one arrives at calling out to Hashem, Karosi Ka. I called out to Ka. Ka is Yudke, which in this context refers to the Yudke as it is in the very essence of Hashem. And through this process, one arrives at the fulfillment of the second part of the verse in Psalm 118, Ononi b'merchav Ka, Hashem, Yudke, of Atzmos, of the very essence of Hashem, answers me with a vast expanse, bringing about the drawing down of the true expansiveness. All this comes about specifically and as a result of the preceding constraints. This is also, in the deeper sense, why we blow the shofar from the narrow side rather than from the wide side, because only through the initial constraint, this is symbolized in the constraint of the shofar, of that narrow side, the initial constraint, that heralds and draws down the expansiveness that follows. Now the Rebbe quotes an interesting Gemara. This is also what the sages say in the Talmud of Rosh Hashanah. Kol shana shehi Rosha b'tchilasa misasheres b'seifa, Rosha hu miloshen chsaron. K'mei shekosov tomid eine havaya lekecha ba mereishis gomer, mereishis chaser aleph. The Talmud says in Rosh Hashanah, any year that is poor, Rosha, troubled, at its beginning, will be made rich at its end. For it is stated in Chumash Dvarim, from the beginning, Meireshis of the year, V'ad Achris Shana, Meireshis Hashana V'ad Achris Shana. The word Meireshis, as it is written in this verse, seems to be defective. It's missing an aleph. It should be Meireshis with an aleph, but it's written Meireshis without an aleph. It omits the aleph. So that may be understood to be read as Roshus, from the expression of poverty. And the verse continues until the end of the year, until the Achris Shana, which means that if it is Rosha, Reishis, without an aleph, poor, impoverished, in the beginning of the year, we can expect good tidings and good things to happen in the end of the year, Achris Shana. So the Rebbe explains, Rosha, poor, has the connotation of lacking. What is it lacking in the deeper sense? Being that the Talmud bases its assertion on the fact that the word Meireshis is missing the aleph, we need to look at the meaning of the letter aleph. So the Rebbe says, Aleph u'bchinas hakeser, u'meireshis chaser aleph, hainu sheberosh Hashanah chaser gam b'chinas hakeser. Kabbalistically, the aleph represents the level of keser. In this context, where meireshis is missing the aleph, it means that in the beginning of the year, when is the beginning of the year? On Rosh Hashanah, when Rosh Hashanah comes in, the divine attribute of keser is lacking. Why? What does it mean the divine attribute of keser is lacking? Top of page test. Ad bechinas hakeser. This is so. Why is Keser lacking from on Rosh Hashanah? This is so because the retraction of the attribute of Malchus, which we were discussing at length in this Maimer, is in such a manner that it causes a retraction in all the divine attributes that precede it, all the way up to and including Keser. And the Rebbe explains this. In general terms, the function of the 10 divine attributes of the realm of Atzilus, from Chochmah all the way down to Malchus, it's actually 9, because we're talking about those 10 divine attributes as they manifest themselves into Malchus. Their function is to be an intermediary between the infinite, unlimited light of Hashem, the Eir Ein Sof, and the lower realms. This being the case, it follows that the main intention and purpose of the divine attributes of Atzilus, from Chochmah all the way through to Yesod, are for the purpose of the attribute of Malchus, the last and lowest of the 10 divine attributes through which the realms of Biyah come into being. Umizem move on. From this is understood she'ikar hakavana b'ishtalshelus esfiris b'shvil sfiris hamalchus shal yoda hi ha'yishavas d'biyah. V'hainu, this is so because shebchinas ayin the malchus shehu ha'makir d'biyah zeu b'chinas ha'ayin the keser shehu b'chinas ha'rotzen liyishavas ha'elamis. This is because the ayin, the nothingness of malchus, of Atzilus, the source of the worlds that follow, creation, formation, and action, is the same, albeit manifest, as the ayin of Keser. Keser being the source of Hashem's will to create worlds. What does it mean that the ayin of Malchus is the ayin of Keser? So to explain the statement above, that the ayin of Malchus is the ayin of Keser, elaboration is required. The sphere of Malchus is the last of the 10 spheres. It is the sphere by which Hashem creates and guides the worlds, all the worlds. Through it, Hashem actualizes His desire to create worlds. It is the lowest of the spheres, so much so that outwardly and openly, it seems as if it has no essence and purpose of its own, but only the execution and actualization of the spheres that precede it. But precisely because of this, Malchus is the one who executes and actualizes all the spheres that precede her. And through her, Hashem creates and guides all the worlds and creatures. Now, although Malchus is one of the spheres, is actually one of the spheres, it is fundamentally different than all the other spheres. All the previous spheres inherently, and at their very core of inception, even at inception, have their own distinct, godly, essential character and identity, as subtle as it may be in the source. But the sphere of Malchus has nothing of its own at all. To use the expression of the Zohar, Malchus les lo migarmo klum. Malchus has no distinct essential character or identity. Rather, it is but the power to bring forth, so to speak, the character and the form of the levels that precede it to cause godliness to emanate. Now, the difference between Malchus and the other spheres begins very deeply in the manner in which Malchus is rooted within its very first root, in the very essence of Hashem, as compared to the manner in which the other spheres are rooted in their first and initial source, in the very essence of Hashem. The very essence of Hashem is totally simple, unformed, non-composite. To use the terminology of Kabbalah Chassidus, poshut betachlis hapshitus, simple in a complete and absolute manner. It is the only true singular simple essence, not limited and defined at all. Now, this doesn't mean that there's nothing in him, in his essence. Rather, it means that he contains everything and everything comes from him. But he is above all the limitations and shortcomings of everything that follows, and he remains so. What is needed in order to construct the spheres and creation that follows into a truly distinct and defined reality is to reduce and limit that which is possessed within Hashem's very essence, to separate them from their unformed simple state and lack of limitation, and to bring them down to a reality which is limited and defined as per Hashem's will. How is this accomplished? This happens through the chain order of creation. From the essence of Hashem, that has everything in it, they continue and descend through the process of Ishtalshalos, the chain order of creation, to a lower level of revelations, which is still beyond all the individual emanations and creations. But at that point, it is already in a state of being their cause and source. This level is generally called in the terminology of Kabbalah and Chassidus, Arich Ampin, which literally means the big face. That is, it has the same face, so to speak, that exists lower down in the spheres of Atzilus, where there they are called Ze'er Ampin, the small face. Except that in Keser, in Arich Ampin, it is in the form of greatness. That is, it is not yet manifest and articulated as defined emanations and spheres. It is still above all kinds of types of individualized and defined features. But in it are included the roots of the individual spheres that will follow. In Arich Ampin they are referred to as Chochma Stima, the hidden Chochma, the hidden Bina, meaning to say they are the roots of the individual defined spheres of Chochma and Bina that will follow in Atzilus. Arich Anpin, or Arich as it is known for short, is the level of Chitzonius HaKeser, the exterior and outer aspect of Keser, the crown, the level of godliness which transcends and which is above the 10 divine attributes. The level of Pnimius HaKeser, the inner dimension, the inner core of Keser, known as Atik or Atik Yomin, at its very core, which at the very highest and innermost level is referred to in Kabbalah and Chassidus with the name Radlo, standing for the words Reisha de Lo Yisyada, the head or beginning that is completely unknown, is unknown not only to others, but even to himself, so to speak. In other words, it's a way of saying that it is the essence of all. And herein lies the difference between all the other spheres and Malchus. All the other spheres except Malchus become manifest through the chain order of creation from the essence, from Atik or Adlo to Arich, and then on to their defined identity as individual spheres. Malchus is different. Malchus does not go through the usual route of the formation of the other spheres. It is not processed. It remains unprocessed. Rather, it is taken directly from Hashem's essence. Yes, it becomes manifest only after all the preceding spheres are present, but it is not born by them, and it is not processed by them. It retains its direct link to the very essence, to its root. Malchus, therefore, does not express any matter of special virtue, any revelations. It has no relation to Arich. Rather, Malchus expresses the fact that it is above all revelations. Malchus expresses the absolute lack of Hashem's limitation, who is above all matters of revelation. It expresses his complete non-limitation, that he is not limited or defined in any way at all. He is not even defined by his own completeness, that there is no other beside him, but rather he can create also and constitute things that will later appear as if they are separated from him, whilst at the same time no change will apply to the absolutely true fact that there is no other beside him, beside Hashem. In other words, to sum it up, perhaps we could say this: all the other spheres express and they manifest Hashem's revelations. Malchus expresses and manifests Hashem's very essence. This difference between Malchus and the rest of the spheres, that Malchus was taken, so to speak, directly from the essence, and is unprocessed and remains unprocessed, while the rest ultimately come from the revelations processed into Arich. This brings us to another point. In what way the spheres are present within their root and origin, while the rest of the spheres are originally present as subtle can be in the form of light energies, revelations called Nehirin, in their source. Malchus is contained in its origin in complete concealment and almost non-existence, in the form of a point that does not belong to revelation at all. The other spheres, because essentially they are revelations of the virtues of Hashem, they are therefore also present within their root, and are in that way and are already prone to discovery. Malchus, on the other hand, since essentially it is a matter of essence and not of discovery and revelation, the manner of its presence at its root is in a completely, almost totally non-existent manner, that it is not prone to revelation and discovery at all, to such an extent that it is considered as a non-reality. It is found there in complete oblivion. And for her part, Malchus, if nothing happens to awaken and reveal her, she may always remain completely hidden and never be revealed at all, so that one will never know about the miraculous power hidden deep within it. Based on this, perhaps this is the meaning of the Rebbe's statement in the Maimah when he says that the ayin, the nothingness of Malchus, is the ayin of Keser. Hashem's essence is referred to as ayin, nothingness, because it is beyond our ability to comprehend or grasp. Even though Hashem is ultimately the only true yesh, the only true existence, to us he is ayin. To us he is incomprehensible and ungraspable. Malchus, being the manifestation of Hashem's very essence, is therefore also at its core in a state of ayin. And I think this is what the Rebbe means when he says that the ayin of Malchus is the ayin of Keser, because Malchus is a direct manifestation of the essence of Keser, its very core. Now let's get back to the Maimon and let's go back a few paragraphs. The Rebbe explained that in general terms the function of the 10 divine attributes of the realm of Atzilus is to be an intermediary between the infinite and unlimited light of Hashem, the Ein Sof, and the lower realms. This being the case, the Rebbe explains, it follows that the main intention and purpose of the divine attributes of Atzilus from Chochmah to Yesod are for the purpose of the attribute of Malchus, the last and lowest of the 10 divine attributes, through which the realms of Biyah actually come into being. That is because the ayin, the nothingness of Malchus of Atzilus, the source of the worlds that follow creation, formation, and action, is the same, albeit manifest, as the ayin of Keser. Keser being the source of Hashem's will to create worlds. This, the fact that the ayin of Malchus is the same aspect as the ayin of Keser, is embedded within the verse in Yeshaya where it says, Ani Rishon v'ani Achron. I am the first and I am the last. If we reorder the words Ani, we will get the word ayin. So the verse could be read as meaning, in the deeper sense, that the first ayin is also the last ayin. The first ayin being a reference to the ayin of Keser, the source, and the last ayin being a reference to Malchus, the last of the 10 divine attributes. So that Malchus should be measurably close enough, level-wise, to be a source for the created yesh, the preceding intermediary of the spheres that preceded is required, because Keser is immeasurably beyond being the source for the yesh. So we needed the 9 spheres that follow it to get to Malchus. This is the process of drawing down the divine energy and light of Keser from level to level, until it is reduced down within Malchus to such a level as to be measurably close enough to be a source for the yesh that follows in Biyah. Now, this being the case, that all the spheres that are there as intermediaries for Malchus, it follows that when a Rosh Hashanah Malchus retracts, all the spheres retracts. Chochmah, Bina, all the way up to Keser. Okay, I think we will stop here, and we will carry on, please God, in the next Shiur.